All right. Well, are we recording? We good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right. All right, we're going to put some method to the madness, right? We got a little crazy, nice little exercise this morning, learning a little bit, getting a little bit more comfortable with our own mission, vision, and values. We got some seasoned professionals up here. You guys want to take 2 seconds and for the recording, because I think everyone in the room has already met you guys, introduce yourselves and give like 2 minutes about your background and how, what got you here, and then we're going to hop into kind of giving real world examples about mission, visions, and values.
Okay, great.
You can stand up, give
sure.
a little overview.
My name is John Chaffee, mechanical engineer by degree, and my company provided technology and services to help manufacturing companies design and make their things better, faster, and cheaper. From a vision and mission perspective, what I would say is at a very high level, my business partner and I really focus first and foremost on core values, which is part of the top level things that you can do for your company. And we built everything off of that. We were EOS. We used EOS as an operating system. If you don't know the book is Traction. And we found that system worked for us, especially in terms of communicating our belief system. And we always felt that things start from the top. So if everybody was really clear on how we saw things running from not only a vision and mission perspective, but the type of people that we wanted to be on the ship with us, the bus from Jim Collins, then everything would fall into place. And largely that's what happened. So.
Thank you. Hal Levinson. So my background is was a CPA. I don't practice the CPA part anymore. So I started with when the big 8, that shows how old I am, because now it's a big 4. And then I went into sales. So it was kind of funny because my father was also an accountant. He's like, oh my God, why would you ever go from big 4 and go in sales? That's the lowest part, but I love sales. And then at age 27, I started my own firm. I had multiple companies. Probably 10 years later, it was exactly 10 years later, I actually sold that firm. And it was like the worst year of my life because I also had a computer business side, which I hate computers, they hate me. And I'm being a control freak. People could lie to me. When I had the accounting firm, I knew if they were lying. And I also, more importantly, I missed being needed. So as a CPA, people would call on you, make decisions. In the computer business, you were only called to fix a problem. And I wasn't really part of the management team. So I actually bought it back. It was like the worst year of my life and my wife's. And so it was my purpose. And then I grew that for a year on myself. I did every single return myself and all that. Then I merged with another company, grew that. About 15 years ago, I started a company called Trilogy Partners, which was really about helping people implement their vision. Because as accountants, we struggled with helping them implementation. We were really good about telling them what they could do. We were 10 times better telling them what they couldn't do, but this is technical, sucked about helping them implement anything. So then I was all about that. I grew that, and then about 3 years ago, I just merged to another firm. And so my philosophy is always not to have a client for life, but have a relationship for life. So I'm always about relationship. That's really my motivation.
Great. So Chris Goodrich, I've been in EO here for 6 or 7 years now, so it's been a fun journey. As far as entrepreneurship goes, it's definitely something I've done my entire life. It's something that I could not do, is the best way to put it. The main service business that we've grown up is called Deer Solution. And what it is, it helps property owners protect their shrubs and flowers from deer damage. So it's a fun little niche, but certainly core values had a huge impact along the way. It allowed us to really focus on the staff internally. So one of the core values for us, adaptability, being adaptive. It was really critical in finding the right people to bring on board, because I'm the type of person that takes a section of the business every year, tears it down, redoes it, reshapes it. And if the people there aren't able to deal and adapt with the change, it causes a huge issue within the company internally. They become unhappy. So just laying that as a foundation, being adaptive as a core value really, really helped out bringing the people on that were able to really take the business to the next level. It's a regional service company at this point. We just franchised it as well 2 years ago. So franchising's been an interesting journey in and of itself, basically starting up a whole new business. But that's, I don't
Chris,
know
out of curiosity, what was the genesis of your deer business?
The genesis was a...
They ate your crops?
No. So it started out, my father-in-law, this business started out, my wife and I purchased it as a mom and pop business with 2 trucks on the road out there servicing. He owned a garden center. People were complaining about the deer eating the plants he was selling. The mad scientist he was out there, creating formulas to keep the deer from eating stuff and grew it into this mom and pop business that was successful. And we basically took it, stripped it down, rebuilt it, and really blew it up.
Okay, that's great. John, how big was your company when you sold? How many employees?
We had 42 employees.
Wow, nice. And your company right now, how big is your consulting group?
We have between the CPA and the consulting, we have like 65 full-time people. On the consulting side, we have about 30, what we call them alliance partners or subcontractors. So probably this year we'll do about 14 million.
Okay. All right, some good gauge there. Who helped you guys set your mission, vision, and values when you started your business? Because you were, I guess, pre this program, did you ever have a conversation? Was it an organic thing you did on your own? Or how did you guys first initially take that first step and set it up?
You want to do it?
Yeah, we did it in 2 phases. One of our main things that we sold, we actually resold. So it was a multi-billion-dollar, global company that developed the software. So think of us, a big part of our business was a distributor. So my business partner and I said, hey, our vision and mission is their vision and mission. So we kind of cheated for the first. If we look at our trajectory, let's say
I wouldn't call that cheating.
Let's say it was a 20-year business.
Oh,
we did it for 20 years before we sold. So the first 10 years was mostly characterized by just being a good partner and following their lead because they had a great product with great brand, and we were the executors. And when we got to somewhere around 15, 20 people, we realized that we were way more than that, and that's when we started to craft our own vision and mission, and then a few years after that, the core values. So yeah, we kind of two-stepped it in terms of how we crafted vision.
I think that's a really smart way to begin.
Yeah.
That's why I asked that question. How about you?
So my original mission and vision, I was kind of lying to myself. So I originally wanted to have like a $20 million consulting firm, and my number 2 person, my integrator, because we practice EOS, she challenged me. She says, "I don't believe it." I'm like, "What do you mean you don't believe it?" She goes, "The way I am," he goes, "like you want to service every client a certain way, and you're not always happy servicing 50 or 60 clients. How are you going to service 600 clients? It'll never work for you." And I'm like, "You're fired." No, I didn't fire her. I did not fire her. No. And so I had to go back, and she said, "Would you mind telling us why you do what you do?" So that's really my core purpose. It took me over 4 months to tell them because it was coming from here, not here. My belief is I just
what do you mean by that?
What do you mean? It's from my heart, not my head. So it's easy to tell people what's in your head, but when you talk from the heart and you have to express that and quantify that, it's hard. So it took me 4 months to really figure that out. And that's my driving force now is based on why I do what I do. And I do really believe, and I love entrepreneurs, and I do believe they're the backbone of America, and they will pay it forward. So thank you guys for being here.
Now, Chris, did you inherit your core mission, vision, and values when you bought the business for the mom and pop garden center?
No, that would have been nice, certainly, to have.
They didn't even have
some
it.
steps. They didn't. It was a mom and pop operation.
Okay.
So they were out there. People were calling in for service. They didn't quite know why. So the marketing wasn't. There just wasn't a lot set up. So we were basically starting at ground zero, but we had some customers, so we had some momentum going forward.
Do you remember the day when you're like, what are we doing here, right? Is that
Yeah,
like a question?
that was a while, certainly, for the mission and vision. My vision initially was financial, like plain and simple, let's go make some money. Maybe in the beginning of my journey in the entrepreneurship world, like that was the focus, right? That was the goal. It's what I was driven towards. But the business, you can only get so far doing that. You have to spend time really developing. For us, the next step was developing and focusing on the internal team, which is really what drove us towards the mission, the vision, and really working on that. We saw the need to get to the next level.
Okay, well, while you're talking here, how do you instill your core mission, vision, and values with your team today? What are you doing that makes you pop and that lets it all kind of like be the North Star for the business, your core purpose?
Yeah, I think just to start with, to get them involved was really, we sat down for, it ended up being 2-day workshop for ourselves to really develop them and get them invested from day one. I kind of guided it along towards the general direction I wanted to go, but everyone had a say in it. Everyone had an involvement in it. At this point, to really keep people in check with it, it's talking about those opportunities where something happened in the company that directly tied to, something in the core value. An action we took, an action we didn't take, and hey, let's point out why we did that. One of the chief core values that really impacts the customers for that service business is responsiveness, which hands down, we always publicize internally when we get a comment from a customer that relates to that, because 9 times out of 10, if they're raving about us, it has to do with us being very responsive to their needs, and certainly to any issues that pop up, because we're never going to be perfect. But yeah, just publicizing the wins and analyzing when something doesn't go right, was it because we didn't do something towards our core value?
Hal, question for you. So, is there any way you reward someone that you recognize for sticking true to your mission, vision, and values?
Yeah, so we do it. We try to recognize people actually for living their values. We used to do it like I'd say at least twice a month. Then we slipped.
And how would you recognize?
So once a week we have a weekly briefing. So it's only 20 minutes, and we go over different things. So at that time, I'm a chief visionary officer. We actually have 2, so we don't follow pure EOS. Don't tell anybody. But so one of us would really recognize them and say, like, this. Yeah, thank you. Here's what they did. Here's what the values. Also, we survey our staff, and really find out, hey, are we living our values? So we ask them. And I guess the other way we recognize it is by letting people go when they don't live the value.
Yeah. Sometimes, the thing to keep in mind, which I think is really interesting, is that when you fire someone, you scare the hell out of your team. And some people don't realize, but having a sense, having your employees be a little scared is a good thing. You want to keep a little bit of that. That's a good way of keeping people in check. You're their boss, you're not their friend at the end of the day. You can be their friend, but at the end of the day, they work for you. And there is that element of respect and regard that should be commended. And if you lose that, it's a real easy way to do it by terminating someone. So that's interesting. Do you recognize people who stay true to your core mission, vision, and values in any way?
No.
Okay.
What I would say is we celebrated when, especially around core values, we celebrated when we got some great customer feedback or something happened internally. But for us, core values is not, it was really who you are. And we work very, very hard to find the people that match those core values to an extreme where we didn't have to worry about them giving them awards because that's who they were. So they were embodying the core values all of the time. There was no need for any kind of award system, but we did do shout outs especially when they were recognized externally.
Now, what's
So,
a shout out?
there was a story, right? We are big believers in people sharing stories. People love stories, people react to stories, people can connect with stories. So we said, tell the story of what happened. So an email would go out, recognition would go out at one of our quarterly company meetings. Somebody would come up and tell the story about what happened, where a particular core value point was recognized externally. So that was
Were there any other ways besides shout outs that you would celebrate someone getting
No.
a good? Okay.
Nope.
We actually gave people like $50 gift certificate, somebody, a client or somebody else. So we gave them, actual money, which they liked, so that's good. The other thing too I just wanted to go a little bit, expand on what John said. When we hire, my integrator, not me, she came up with the idea, which was really, really fantastic. They had to go, we would interview them, and when they were a finalist, they had to come, we would ask them questions. So we wouldn't tell them our core values, and we'd ask them questions. They had to answer these questions in writing, how they would handle a certain situation. And it was really to tell us about, were they going to live our core values or not?
Can you give an example?
Oh my God.
You don't have to.
No,
It's on the spot.
It would be like one of our core values is telling the hard truth. So we would ask a question saying like, you know what? If a client, a big client came to you, whatever, and paid you a lot of money, but they weren't doing exactly what we thought they should be doing, how would you handle that?
It's a great question.
And so if they just said, oh, you could tell by the way they answered that question. Yeah.
So there's a team of 5 that I manage on a day-to-day. 3 of them are superstars. The other 2 are great. They're just not superstars. I feel like every time I do a shout out, it's always those same 3. So it seems like favoritism. And I feel like as a result, those other 2 keep getting a little worse and worse. So like because they're not favored, I have no other way to say it. So does it ever work against you? And any advice based on that situation?
Yeah, so I think most companies, it's funny, most managers, a lot of times they focus on their worst people. And really, what you should really do focus is on your top 10%, because you know what, if you lose them, you're in trouble. And a lot of times we take them for granted, and that's a mistake. So maybe you have to look at the other 2. And we also have a mentoring program or coaching program. So you can have those other ones try to coach those people, but if they're not making it, why are you keeping them?
No, they're good. They're just not amazing. They're great. The others are just.
Yeah, you're about 1,000.
Yeah, then you're fine.
Yes, they are. Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay,
you
if it ain't
can,
broke, don't fix it.
yeah. Well, maybe you find a different way to recognize them.
Okay.
Find a different way to recognize them if you want to keep them.
Okay.
Well, I guess a team of 5 is small. I was gonna say, what do you do when the team is even? What do you do when the team is even smaller and it's like you're trying to? I don't know. Maybe I don't.
What's
know
your
how to
question,
phrase
Lauren?
it.
Exactly.
I'm not sure.
How do you recognize someone?
Well, and I think her specific.
Well, no, I think it's like if you only have 3 people and to your point, you're always recognizing one. It's not that the other isn't good. You don't want to not recognize the one that's
Why don't
doing-
you come up with a situation to help them to be recognized, or ask them, say, hey, you know what, I'm always recognized so-and-so. Ask them how they feel, and they're like, yeah, why don't you recognize me? And you say, here, that gives you an opportunity to communicate with them, saying, boy, if you did this, this, and this, I would love to recognize you. How do you feel?
You can also ask them how they want to be recognized. Like,
Yeah.
That's a good
I
point.
love being rewarded with money, right? But not everybody does. Some people just want can I just come in late, or can I take a Friday off, or everyone has different needs.
Anything to add to that, Chris?
I think for us, the biggest thing is to really do it on the team level, and that really goes to how we break up our job roles. If a customer is happy with responsiveness, 4 people handle that, right? It's really broken down into systems for us where, it's not coming down to one person that's really developing that experience. So that's why we really just stick on the team level. And I would honestly say the only time it's an individual thing is if they're just not meeting the core values. Like if you're not living it and you're going against it, like it's a strike. It's not a reward. It's just, 3 strikes.
Okay, so
clearly it's not the right
you have a
space.
3-strike policy.
Yeah.
Is that usually how you're operating with your employees in this regard?
Yeah, definitely.
They're not stealing from you, but they're not hitting these competencies that you would expect from them. You pull them in. The first time you say, hey, listen, I don't think you're doing something. You need to do it like a little bit better. Second time, you're still not doing it. Third time, they're gone. Is that kind of a progression?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. Because it's a tough conversation, that first conversation, right? Probably a harder conversation the second time. Third time is probably easy by that point to fire them. Is that?
Yeah, it always is, but you have to think about the impact, not just on the company, right, but the other staff that are meeting that bar, and here you have someone that's not. What is it saying to the rest of the team, right? You as a business owner, great, you're putting money in your pocket, but your responsibility is also to the other employees, their families. So why are you going to let one person affect the others mentally, financially? Again, the impact on the business has an impact on all the employees.
When you sold your business, was there anything that the acquiring company recognized from anything from your core mission, vision, and values that kind of you can credit for your success and your exit?
Yeah, we were fairly well known in our industry. It's a very niche industry, so kind of all the owners of the businesses like ours knew each other. We've been getting together at the few conferences a year for 20 years. So every business like ours had a kind of a reputation, and we were for sure known for being a very people-oriented organization. We were also known for punching above our weight class for the way we ran our company. So the acquiring company is now a 400-person organization, and myself and my integrator, all we're doing is getting them up and doing what we did. So for the last year and a half, we've been just saying, hey, this is how you do core values. This is what an operating system looks like. This is how you interview. So they've basically taken our philosophies and the way we ran our organization and are applying it, even though at the time they purchased us, they were 8x our size. So that's that's where they saw the value. They saw the value in how we ran our company and how we work with our people, how we crafted a culture, which is all very intentional. And they hey, as great as we've done, we want more of that. So it's been nice to see that impact.
Expand on that a little bit. In the hiring process, how do you identify, or what are the early indicators of a candidate, that they are going to be someone who's going to follow your mantra?
Yeah, we have a lot along that specific point. So I'll try and bullet it for you. Yeah. So by far, and we've heard this from many candidates, it was the hardest interviewing process they've ever been through. We probably interviewed 40 people for every hire. Wow. 40 people. And for a small company, that's a lot. And somebody would be a rock star on paper, and then as soon as we looked at each other, we're like, they're out. And we didn't even need to, we'd almost talk about why to make sure that we were 100% on the same page. But we knew they wouldn't be a core values fit, and we could tell literally 200 stories about it. So we put a very, very rigorous process in place.
Questions that were immediate qualifiers?
We had a very rigorous process with hundreds of questions, and we trained our managers on how to do it well. So we had the core values. We did it a little bit differently. We gave them our core values, and we said, write up how you've embodied these core values in the past, and then they would have to come and give a presentation to it.
They're a lot easier than us.
Yeah. And then we tear them to shreds in the most positive way possible. Once we said, okay, we think this person's got the clay, the skills to do the job, so now all we really care about are their core values fit, we ripped into them. And I could tell you stories that I even got uncomfortable. I would pop in still. After a while, I stopped doing it. My manager would come in, I'm like, wow, I'm uncomfortable. But that's what it needed. It needed to get uncomfortable, and it was all based on, I'll try and keep this up. We asked them to tell stories. So tell us a time when. and we would listen to their story. Tell us a time when you embodied caring and selfless. That was one of our core values. Tell us a time when you embodied that. And we would listen to their story, and we would just keep ripping into that story, because usually everybody could give you the answer for your first question. Everybody can answer. Tell me a story of when you were caring and selfless, and you'd have a great answer. And then we dig in, second level, third level, fourth level questions, and we could figure out who was bullshitting their way through us.
What does a second level question mean? What is that? So to answer your first question, you're happy with.
Yeah. So, hey, Carly, tell us a time when you were an intern at Disney, and tell us a time when you demonstrated caring selfless. Well, I was in charge of people's happiness on the line, and what we would do is we'd ask them a couple questions, and then and then if they were really unhappy, we'd give them like a voucher for the concession. Oh, that's great. Okay, so that's great, Carly. So how often did that work? Oh, it worked all the time. Okay, so tell us a time when it didn't work. Oh, well, let me think.
Pause.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Right. And then they'd stop, and then they had to think about a time when it didn't work. Well, there was this one time, and then now we're off to the races. And then we got the real story about when they had a very difficult situation around caring and selfless. Carly got questioned on that. I happened to pop in. She got questioned on that story for 40 minutes. We hired Carly.
It goes back to the hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
How long was the typical interview process?
Yeah, so we would have, I know it's challenging to hear this in this day and age, especially post-COVID, but permit me to, we figured it out. We would have 4 interviews. Some of them were the first one was a very quick screening, then a little bit more with the HR manager, and then the main interview was with the hiring manager. So in Carly was a technical person, an engineer, so it was an engineering manager that had the main hour-and-a-half interview. And if they made it through that, it would be one more core values interview. And the core values interview was typically another hour to hour and a half. And we had a very specific interviewer that wasn't the hiring manager that would be the core values interviewer. And they just interviewed that individual for core values and core values only. So it was rigorous, but when we made a hire, we had a very, very high success rate of them actually living the core values. There's no such thing as 100%, but by and large, and then again, as I said in the beginning of my intro, I think once you get that right, almost everything else falls into place.
Hey, Hal, question for you.
Wait, I just want to follow. Yeah,
Okay.
a couple of things. One, so I loved John's idea. I would always ask, give me a second example. So you usually come with one. When you ask them the second, then you get a little deeper, and then go a little bit deeper. And all you have to do is ask one word, why? Why did you do that? And like, what do you mean? Then the hardest part, at least for me, was then you have to shut up. You can't help them. When they're struggling and there's that silence, most people want to jump in. And I watch other people, and I'd be like, no, and be like, and then all of a sudden you get the real truth. So you have to be quiet, and then you have to hold yourself back. A lot of us like to sell our companies. They have to sell us. So you have to let them do it. So I just wanted to expand on that couple.
You want anything to add on your hiring? And
I
core
think
values?
for us, one of the key things is definitely the number of applicants, right? If you don't have a lot of applicants coming in, it's very difficult to select from them, especially for the service business, right? You got work to get done. And if you don't have enough people coming in, you kind of settle for second best, third best. So, one point in time, we've really focused on building out that pipeline to bring in essentially leads, right, of employees. To build upon that, as far as the adaptive core value for us, like that was we put it in their face at least 3 times during the interview that, listen, this is what we're about. We're about changing the company. Are you comfortable with this? Okay. It's a big thing, right? Because if they're not comfortable with it, it's just going to be an issue through and through, certainly. And then as far as excellence being one of our core values, setting the bar for everyone else, that really goes towards us laying out expectations, and do you feel comfortable you're going to be able to meet these expectations? Because again, there's just a minimum. If you're below it, you're out. If you're above it, great, you're where you're supposed to be. It's not a reward for being where you're supposed to be.
Can you elaborate on how you expanded intentionally your... Can you expand on how you intentionally created a larger base of potential employees to interview? How was that lead created?
Yeah, one of the things we did, right, through Indeed, we found out, like, Indeed was, it was pretty decent for getting in leads. We had to spend a huge chunk of money. But what we ended up doing was essentially doing A/B split tests in there. And we would go ahead and put up, for our service technician, we would put up job postings that were basically titled, hey, if you're this, landscaper, then this job might be a good fit for you. And we found out, for instance, like one of the top ones that worked out well was package delivery people, which we weren't getting in with having a service technician title of a position. So now, like, one of our key ones, we go after package delivery people. So we get a lot of people in from Amazon, for instance, that are good at doing routes, good at going out and doing lots of little jobs, which is what we're looking for. So for us, again, trial and error, putting it out there, A/B split testing to just figure out to get those people in.
So you seriously just did sponsored ads on Indeed with better job descriptions and better posts?
Different job descriptions, different headline. The biggest thing was the headline to get people in, right? Because you have a delivery driver guy, he's not thinking outside the box. Let me go check out pest control. No, I mean, we made the job easy enough so anybody can do this job. We need someone to show up. We need them to be committed and, want to, when they pull up to a stop, step out of the vehicle and go do your job. That's what we needed. So we had to explore other options to find those people.
Yeah, we also ask our employees, even our clients, who they know. That helps. And then we reward especially our employees. We give them actually money if the person stays and all that. The other thing, when I was just thinking about on core values, sometimes you have to be a little flexible in your own core values. So like I create core values. One was always think outside the box. And when you're dealing with like accountants and people, all my people are usually opposite me, which is really good. They're process oriented. They're just like, what do you mean? Like, we don't even, like I don't even see a box. They're just like, they don't even want to go. They're like, can't we just have
outside the box?
Stay at the box. Yeah. So I had to be flexible. I'm like, all right, let's just draw outside the lines so we can think a little differently. So you just have to be careful, somebody who you're dealing with.
Any other questions for the panelists while we're up here?
It might be similar, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I find it a real challenge with, if I'm hiring a receptionist, I mean, this is not, high income, but that's still my front line, right? So like, to your point, I put, in the job description or in the thing, steps you got to follow, and like I could have 140 applicants and 2 people that actually read to the end and did what they were supposed to do, and both of them sucked. So I really struggle with that. I don't know if you have suggestions, but.
Yeah, so one of the things coming down for us, again, kind of a numbers game. We're trying to get in as many applicants as possible, and especially for a customer service on the phone position, one of the things we tried to do to automate that process, because again, you get in 500 applicants, how the hell are you going to even weed that down? So the first cutting point we didn't even look at the resumes at first, right? One of the things, core value, responsiveness. So what we did was drop a voicemail to people and tell them to call back and leave a message as though you are, a customer or something like that, or answer the question that the recording says. And, those people that actually took the time to do that, they were on to the next level. And it really trimmed it down to like 50 people from that 400 or 500 people because, again, responsiveness, and most people just don't.
Was responsiveness one of your core values?
Yeah, that's one of the big ones. So
That's
through
right.
and through responsiveness. So if at any point during the application process they're not responsive,
They're out.
like you're out. Yeah, sorry. Then good luck on your job hunt.
Okay. Anyone have any other questions, comments, concerns, issues? Go on, guys. What's going on?
So can you guys talk a little bit about how you apply mission, vision, core values to customers and vendors, and how that application impacts your employees?
How you apply it to vendors? All right, I'm passing it off for a moment. Why?
Wait, vendor? I'll do. I was sharing earlier with one of our clients. When I first started my one business, I was doing like 600,000. I had one client that was about 150,000. Did not live our values, but paid us a lot of money, always on time, And I could just see my people were just like looking at me like, "Well, you're so full of shit," So I had to. Yeah, seriously.
Well, why'd they feel that way?
Well, because I should have, and I finally fired them. It was the best day of my life and their life, and it was scary. It was like 25% of my business, but it was the best thing. So, and that just turned our whole attitude. Not only we had alliance partners, they said, okay, you have to lead by example, and you have to make those hard, scary decisions. So I would say that's one way we did it.
Yeah, I would say there's two things that come to mind. So first of all, we did have vendors, partners. We called them partners because a bunch of stuff that we did, we resold. So there's these many, very large, hundreds of millions of dollars of annual revenue, billions of dollars of annual revenue. So we had very deep relationships with them. So we just actively communicated all of our vision, mission, core values. Like, this is how we're running our organization. Let us know what you think. How does this fit for you? Is there any tweaks that you'd make? We wouldn't let them tweak that stuff, but we give them the opportunity to have a conversation. Now, obviously, they liked what they saw because they were, it fit very nicely to our organization, who my partner and I were as people. So it was all more or less selling them on us. They like, oh, this is amazing. This is great. I know this client. I think they're actually better with you guys as opposed to this other organization. So we were very active in communicating with our partners. For our customers, we crafted what we called a 3-minute positioning statement that built in all of our mission, our vision, our core values, and our brand. And we basically told every salesperson when we were establishing a new relationship, because you're going to hear a common theme, it's so much easier to solve problems before they start, which is why I'll hammer on the core values interviewing. You run into a tenth of the problems when you bring people into the company. As a matter of fact, one of the things Hal said was we made sure they were clear. We would tell them, listen, if you feel you're not a true core values fit, tap out. At any time, you don't even have to tell us why, but we're begging you to tap out because we will come up and it won't work out if you're not one of these core values. And it happened like 3 times. It only happened 3 times, but the point is they got the message that this shit was real. So in the 3-minute positioning statement, we basically told our clients, this is who we are as people, this is how we run our organization, and therefore this is how you will get supported based on our belief system. And it was the same thing. If this doesn't fit for you, that's okay. So we basically gave them permission to not buy from us before we ever started. And you know what happened. Holy shit, we've never seen anything like this. When could we sign up? Now I'm making it nice for the presentation here today, but we still had to have a good product at a right value perceived in the marketplace. But that really separated us from other people that did similar things to what we did.
The idea of radical honesty, I think, is important.
So I'll just jump in quickly. One of the other core values is respect. And, we've fired customers over that. If they're ranting and raving or threatening or being very aggressive, if it's a small thing, we'll have a quick conversation with the customer. Bigger things, again, we've fired customers over it. They really broke that trust, that bond. And we're internally thinking respect towards our employees as well, towards each other, right? Someone does not deserve to come to work, try to provide top level experience to the customers and have a screaming customer on the phone. Like, it's just not, it's not right.
This is going to be a silly question. How do you fire a customer?
But it's always entertaining, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
So it's a tough conversation. Usually you get hung up on or whatever. Sometimes they're very apologetic, everything like that. But if it's bad enough, it's, listen, we're going to help you transition over to another company. We'll find the best one for you, and we'll go ahead and make the introduction to try to move you over. But it's just at this point not a good fit.
Yeah, I like the Israeli approach, which is kind of interesting, which is like you put it on the customer a little bit, meaning maybe we're not the best partner for you. When you phrase it just like that, maybe we're not the best partner for you, you're putting it on them, right? And I say the Israeli approach because every Israeli, what's the immediate thing they're going to say back to that? No, you are the right part if you're lucky. Otherwise, you get hung up on. Yeah. But if you get hung up on, you're going to lose them anyway. But sometimes that self-actualization, the realization that they're like, oh, maybe I am being an asshole. Or I've gotten people call me back. No, I still want to keep work. I want to make this work. Right? And you can give them that last potential out. And then if they screw up again, then they're definitely done. But that's why I asked that question is, how do you do it? It's a very difficult conversation. When I say most people I know who run their business don't fire their customer until it's too late. What does it mean to be too late? What's too late?
They're costing you money.
All the above. You're losing an employee, they're costing you money, they're wasting your time. Even worse, they're suing you. Bad-mouthing you. So you always want to be at the forefront of the conversation. This is your business. More than disrespecting you or your employees, this is your brand. This is your core mission, vision, and values that's being stepped on. And, if someone was physically in front of your face, stepping on your logo and then looking in the face, you do something about it. But it's a lot easier for someone to be a jerk over the phone than it is in person, and you can't let them do that. And it's a lot easier said than done. Again, most people don't. Most people wait till it's too late. That's how these lawsuits start. Because they're just being nice. And sometimes being nice, or so they think they're being nice, is a disservice. Right? Fair statement?
Yeah, we go through twice a year a whole list of who do we want to fire twice a year. So.
Did you ever make that list?
No.
Well, let me ask this. And how do you, throughout the year, keep your core mission, vision, and values relevant? Do you guys reassess? And what do you do? How do you do that?
So we practice EOS like John, and so every quarter we go over that, and then we have a State of the Union at the end of the year, and then we share, what our vision is going forward, what our 3-year plan is, here's our core values. We tell about them, we share it. But the most important thing is just really living it. And we do what's called a people analyzer. So we have pluses and minuses, or even. And if you don't score at least 80% that you're living those values 80% of the time, you will be gone. And they all know that. So that's
an internal and external analysis, employees and clients, or is that just?
We don't do it. It's funny because my new firm, they didn't even want, because when we took over, kind of like John's situation, they actually merged with us because they wanted our infrastructure and that my integrator is now the integrator for the whole company, and we were so much smaller. But they fought me for 2 years to go survey their clients because they were afraid to hear what the real truth was.
That's so fun.
Yeah. So now we do. We do that, and the next step will be hey, let's start valuing which clients.
It's a really important thing you just said. Deliberate delay. Okay, people will intentionally stall. Again, it's like no different than kids growing up, stalling to get the work done. when it comes to the tough conversations, no one wants to have a tough conversation. They want to wake up every day and feel like they just sold ice cream on the beach, made everyone happy and smile. So you got to keep that, be cognizant of that, right? All right, how do you answer the question there from, how do you guys reassess your core mission values statement? What do you guys do?
Yeah, we would have the leadership team, we'd meet quarterly, the company would come together quarterly, 2 separate meetings, and my personal belief is that core values really shouldn't change often because, again, if you're trying to articulate to potential people and existing people how you believe who you are as a human being, that really shouldn't change often. So I think 5 years after we crafted them, my business partner, myself, and my integrator, we looked at them, we're like, will we change anything? And 30 seconds later, we're like, nope, we're good. And so that never got, the core values really never got talked about. But of course, what we're calling the mission and the vision, that should be discussed. I wouldn't say we looked at it every quarter, but for sure at the annual planning cycle, we reviewed those things and just did a gut check on the vision and mission. And they rarely, if anything, I can't think of a time when they actually changed, but we did purposely review to see if there's anything different. What changed is the plan. The did the 10-year, we had, again, we're using US terms, did the 10-year thing change? Did the 3-year thing change? Did the annual thing change? Well, of course, that shit changes, in quotes, all the time because all the external influences that are coming at your company from the market, from the macroeconomic trends, things like that, so.
Any final word, Chris? I have a quick question.
Go on, Andrew.
So, do you do any kind of, like I did recently, an employee survey just to see how our employees thought how we were doing. Do you do any of that to kind of make sure you have matched expectations?
We do that. Yeah, we do that all the time. Yeah, we probably do that at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, and then we review the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then we commit to. I think the most important thing, we have to commit to at least fixing 2 of the issues. If we don't address any of the issues, then don't do the survey, because then it's just like you're just placating them.
Publicly respond to them, like do you bring them out?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We actually rank and all that. And for the most part, the first year we did it, because again, the old firm wouldn't do it, but when we got there, we did it, and they were okay, not great, but okay, and then it got better. Now this year, I think 95% of people, one of the questions said, would you ever leave? And they would say no, unless the leadership team changed. So that was pretty complimentary.
Great point.
Yeah, and then, but they did say, but they also said too, we were worried about the leadership team because some of us are getting older. What's going to happen? What's your plan? So.
You kick off. What's going to happen?
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's amazing you're still there.
Yeah. They bought me a rocking chair. They
A bed for nap time?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I could run for, never mind. I don't know. Yeah. I could be the next president.
All the time that I'm an employee now.
Yeah. But no, like communications was an issue, feedback. They even said, money, so we address all those issues. We believe in transparency.
I'm just going to give a little counterpoint. Our belief is from not only what we experience, but what we see other people. Surveys are great if you yourself, depending on the scale of your company, if you yourself or your managers don't really know what's going on in their people's lives. We never use surveys because we didn't need them, because we focused on if you're a manager, if we had an engineering manager, was Carly's manager having a great one-on-one every week with Carly? Because that's 100 times more impactful than a survey, which people could bullshit if they want to. So I would say that I see the value in surveys, especially at larger scale organizations, hundreds, thousands of people, where you just want another look at how people are feeling. But don't rely on surveys to really understand what's happening on a one-to-one basis. Rely on good one-on-one meetings, team member to their manager. That's where you'll learn everything that you need about an individual.
All right, last question here for you. Unless, AJ, go ahead.
Two components, right? One's anonymous, one's not, right? So I think
Yeah.
there's a component.
For sure.
Ours is always anonymous.
Yeah, yeah.
So question, I have no employees, but I have contractors. So do you use these same methodologies for contractors or with contractors?
Ooh, I can answer. I have over 30 contractors. Some people here, work with some of them. So no, we don't survey them and all. But we have monthly meetings with them, and we do get feedback. They know what our values are and all that. We project manage, so we give them feedback. If we don't think they're doing what we think, and vice versa. And then we do always ask them for what are we doing good or what aren't we doing good, what their clients are, and all that. So it is collaborative.
If your boss has feedback for you, you better listen.
Here's a 2023 question for the three of you. You got an employee. You're not really too. You got five sales reps that are good. 2 are great. Not the best. What's your ethical, personal opinion on reviewing people's emails? Do you look in your employees' emails? Do you review the emails? Is that an overstep? Is there an ethical issue?
That's fascinating. So, I mean, a lot of what we do, we try to have it all out in the open anyway, especially dealing with customers. So again, one of the things we did was break apart the customer experience so that even with the sales for our customers, like one person is not in charge of the sales, right? It goes down the pipeline essentially where we have a couple people in each of the stages to deal with the sales process. And again, it's essentially all out in the channel. When it gets to the next stage, they see every piece of communication that came before. Everyone can see everything. Like it's out in the open. Okay. So, yeah.
We do not look at their emails.
Same. No real experience share on that point.
Okay. Yeah, emails are a company work product. So one of the best things is when you terminate an employee, you don't just fire them and move on. You fire them and reflect. And it's okay to go through and review. And it's a good way of also figuring out, first off, when and how your employees communicate with your clients, but also their managers. How are their managers directing them? Because then you can get your privy and insight to the leadership of the company, right? Because maybe they were bad employees because their managers weren't managing them appropriately. So, a lot of people have this ethical issue, and it definitely is an ethical issue. But if you're, part of your core competency is, again, radical honesty, then there shouldn't be a discretion. And I like that you actually pass it through, and it actually makes sense. The work product, again, is property of the company. So there's no expectation of privacy. Too many employers and too many friends of mine who run businesses give way too much power to the employee. And you got to make sure you walk that church. Thanks, guys. That was really, unless you have anything else to add, that was really great. Really appreciate it.